Derek falls seriously ill. Ava, where are you? Zanina searched for her sister impatiently, but before she got a response, Eva appeared in front of her with one of their favorite books. Eva started reading immediately, and Zanina seemed to be listening attentively while also keeping an eye on her surroundings. Meanwhile, Derek strode into the kitchen, his expression dark and unreadable as he approached Erica. Lowering his voice to a menacing tone, he warned her to keep a closer eye on Zanina didn't trust her. A tense silence stretched between them before Erica finally nodded in agreement. Without another word, Derek turned on his heel and made his way down the hallway. The front door creaked open, then shut behind him with a definitive thud. Moments later, the distant thunder of hooves echoed through the night as he rode off on a horse he had taken from the stable beside the house. Maybe he was chasing the comfort of women, whiskey, and smoke. Or perhaps he needed the familiar faces of old companions or just a bottle strong enough to drown the weight of his miserable life, Eva thought. But she didn't hesitate to ask Zanina further information because she was worried. Derek must not go out in the dark. He could vanish without a trace or worse. Someone out there might be watching, waiting, ready to kill him. Ava, come to your senses. He is and will always be a criminal for the rest of his life, not a pure man who goes regularly to the church. Besides, he is responsible for all the terrible things that have happened. Before Ava could justify her hasty words, and before they had a chance to discuss a plan, Erica appeared before them, holding a gun with the sole intention of intimidating the young ladies. Once you eat your dinner, you'll go to sleep quietly, without resistance. But if you so much as think of pulling something, Hawk will die a brutal death, and it will be on your heads. There's no trunk, is there? They'll tear the island apart for hours. Also, your dear father can cling to a little more time. Our father never lies, Eva insisted. Oh, really? Your memory must be failing you, my dear. He never told you about the gang, about our relationship, about the son we share, and countless other things I could describe in perfect detail, if you'd like. Erica, you once loved us. Why are you trying to hurt us now, ever since these ruthless men forced their way into our lives? Erica didn't answer Zanina's important question. She simply coldly stated, once, your mother knew that Hawk loved me more than her from the day I started working for you as a maid. She couldn't bear the shame and left you, abandoned you. So, our father was the soldier who promised you a better future. And our mother was the daughter of a rich family. And no, this can't be true. As Zanina pieced together the truth, Eva, stunned and furious, spun toward Erica with the intent to strike. But the gun in Erica's hand instantly shattered that plan. Zanina tried to calm her down. The blame lies with our father, Eva. By tomorrow, everything will be over and... Before Zanina could finish her sentence, Eva sat back down near the fireplace, crying and wondering how their lives had come to this. She remembered how, just hours ago, she had been so happy. Zanina decided to suppress her negative emotions and avoid speaking to Erica again, who had settled into an armchair, glaring at them relentlessly while keeping the gun aimed at them. She urged her sister to join her in the kitchen, where they could have some soup and then rest, hoping to ease the lingering stress and tension, assuring her that everything would be fine. Eva nodded in agreement and immediately followed Zanina to the kitchen. After finishing their soup, Eva silently went to her room, not saying a word to Erica. Erica, deciding it was best to stay where she was, permitted Zanina to settle in one of the armchairs, where she herself soon succumbed to sleep. Zanina sat in an armchair by the window, trying to hide her anxiety. Unintentionally, her thoughts turned to Derek. The clock above the fireplace showed it was midnight, and she continued to gaze out the window, thinking about her father, despite all his mistakes, and the possibility of returning to England once again as a happy family. Suddenly, her thoughts were shattered by the sound of galloping horses. She strained to see from the window where the noise was coming from and eventually spotted a carriage. When it came to a stop, Derek emerged, accompanied by two ladies. After kissing them and bidding them farewell, they climbed back into the carriage and left. He strode toward the house's entrance, singing loudly, and knocked on the front door. However, there was no answer, and he turned toward the window where Zanina sat. The moment she realized Derek was approaching the window, she instantly pretended to be asleep. Drunk as he was, he collapsed right there, and despite the biting cold, he soon fell into a deep sleep. After a while, Zanina noticed that Derek and Erica had fallen asleep and decided to think of a way to take revenge on them. I wish he would freeze to death, she thought, but her conscience immediately tormented her with guilt. What am I saying? I'm not that kind of person, she thought, clenching her hands into fists. But the anger inside her had not subsided. She knew she had to find a way to make them pay, but without becoming worse than them. I need to think of something smarter, something that will teach them a lesson without weighing on my soul, she muttered under her breath. An idea slowly began to take shape in her mind, flickering like a distant light in the darkness. She clasped her hands together and prayed to God, pleading for his forgiveness and for his divine protection over her family as they faced the perils ahead. A deep sorrow weighed upon her heart, and she wept silently, her body trembling with emotion. Tears streamed down her face, spilling onto her hands, until finally, she had no more left to shed. Exhausted and drained, she let out a shaky breath, her soul caught between despair and determination. At the same time, she kept watching Erica, mind fixated on how to take the weapon from her. Determined, she rose from the armchair and, with slow and steady movements, walked toward the kitchen. She grabbed a sharp knife and quietly returned to the room, her footsteps barely making a sound. As she approached Erica, who was in a deep, undisturbed sleep, her grip on the knife tightened. The dim light cast eerie shadows across Erica's face, which appeared calm and untroubled, so different from the storm raging inside Zanina. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stood over her, hesitation creeping in like a cold whisper. Erica's face appeared peaceful, in stark contrast to Zanina's, which was marked by fear and resentment. She raised her hand, gripping the knife, without knowing why, but then she lowered it again. She didn't have the courage to make even the slightest move against Erica. After a few moments of uncertainty, she quietly returned the knife to the kitchen so as not to raise suspicion in the morning. Then, she quietly returned to her seat, sinking into the heavy silence that filled the room. Her hands trembled as she rested them on her lap, her mind a whirlwind of fear, doubt, and regret. She had come so close to crossing a line she never thought she'd even approach. The thought that she could have become like the very criminal she despised sent an icy shudder through her entire being. She hugged her arms around herself, as if trying to keep from unraveling, but the weight of her own conscience pressed down on her like a suffocating shroud. The flickering fire cast restless shadows across the walls, mirroring the turmoil inside her. Exhaustion seeped into her bones, yet her mind refused to settle. Still, the night was long, and eventually, despite the storm raging within her, sleep crept in, pulling her into its uneasy embrace. A forest appeared before her, with terrifying trees and chilling figures, and a hostile moon that hindered her ability to see the images clearly. She tried to work with her mind to drive away the darkness and bring back the sun, but her wish was not granted. Suddenly, a young man dressed in black appeared near her, looking melancholic. To avoid being noticed, she hid behind a tree. The young man counted the empty bottles beside him and began searching desperately for a full one. When he finally found none, he looked ahead in surprise. He had reached his destination. As Zanina wondered why the man was surprised, she noticed a cemetery behind her. The man walked through the wrought iron gate of the cemetery, and Zanina followed him quietly. There were many graves, and the causes of death were clear: war and poverty. She thought about why this man might be visiting the cemetery, but at the same time, she couldn't understand her own reason for being in this place. Dressed like a princess, she stayed where she was, observing the man's movements unnoticed, and soon saw him kneeling over one of the graves. The gravestone read, 1820 to 1845, Elizabeth Farlow. What a shame. She was just a young lady when she died. Zanina thought, ready to go and console him, but she held back. The man remained kneeling, his shoulders trembling as he broke into uncontrollable sobs, burying his face in his hands. Suddenly, the place was filled with light as a female figure appeared, dressed in white, holding a candle. Around them, Children were playing and laughing, but their figures were faint. The scene was beautiful, and the man was overjoyed. But when he tried to embrace the figures, the woman blew out the candle and everything vanished. At last, he took a rose from his pocket and placed it on the grave. Zanina then decided to reveal herself to him, helped him to his feet, and the young man wiped his tears and sighed, trying to draw strength from her presence. "Did you see, miss?" he asked, and Zanina smiled at him and said, "Let me help you. My beloved wife once spoke of a celestial presence, a radiant angel who would one day descend to rekindle my spirit and bring me back to life," said the young man, smiling for the first time, and he invited Zanina to his manor. He awaited her response, but before she could speak, another presence emerged in her place and answered instead. It was Erica. It was already morning, and it turned out that Zanina was the second to wake up. The first, of course, was Erica, who was shaking Zanina to wake her. Once she had succeeded, she glanced out the window and saw Derek lying outside the house. Without hesitation, she rushed out to wake him. "Derek, what are you doing here? Wake up, it's morning." Derek stirred, clutching his head with both hands as an unbearable pain coursed through him. He had yet to understand why he was in such agony and struggled to rise. In his effort, he managed to utter with difficulty, "Where am I?" His voice was so distorted that Erica felt a pang of sympathy for him and reassured him, "I'll help you inside. Let me light the fireplace and heat some water for our tea to warm you up." Erica carefully supported Derek as he stumbled inside, guiding him to the couch. She settled him gently by the crackling warmth of the fireplace, ensuring he was as comfortable as possible. Wasting no time, she set about preparing breakfast. Zanina, however, seemed unfazed by the events unfolding around her. Her mind was still lost in the meaning of her dream, imagining how happy she would be if it became reality. Meanwhile, Eva had already washed, dressed, and was making her way down the stairs, eager to confirm that the misfortunes of the previous day had been nothing more than a bad dream. But as soon as she caught sight of Erica and Derek's faces, her heart sank. She immediately asked if there was any news of their father. Upon receiving a negative answer, she requested permission to wash and feed the horses in the stable. Erica granted it, trusting her Moreas long as she didn't bring her sister along. Before letting her go, she handed her a piece of her favorite dessert. Eva accepted the sweet treat, savoring each bite before heading toward the front door. As she reached it, she gave Zanina a soft "good morning," the words lingering in the air before she stepped outside. Derek suddenly began coughing uncontrollably, causing Erica to grow concerned. She quickly gave him a cup of hot tea and some bread. She did the same for Zanina, ordering her to eat and immediately care for the patient. Zanina took 2 sips of the tea, ate her bread, and covered Derek with a blanket. She helped him eat and drink his tea, all the while complaining. "Derek has a fever and needs a doctor. Tea alone won't be enough." "The doctor won't come," Erica replied firmly. "I'll bring him 2 blankets and a cloth soaked in cold water. You're in charge of his health now." Derek's condition fluctuated. He would worsen and then improve. Meanwhile, Zanina stayed by his side, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Time passed, and there was still no word from Hawk and the others. However, Eva returned from the stable in a slightly better mood and quickly asked about Derek's condition. "You've fallen ill, Derek. Was it the island's allure that led you astray in the stillness of the night?" "I drank too much to forget, miss," Derek explained, offering a sympathetic glance at Zanina as he said, "I searched for your presence in every face, but you were nowhere to be found." "I'm not some naive little girl, Derek, the kind who loses her dignity in a single night. Besides, your young ladies provided you with splendid company." Zanina faltered mid-sentence, the realization dawning that she had unintentionally exposed her little secret. But then, she admitted that it had been her who left him to sleep in the cold the previous night, uncaring of the consequences. After bracing herself for Derek's harsh reaction, she was surprised to find that he wasn't angry. Instead, he began to joke about it. "You saw me and didn't let me in? Was your pride wounded, miss? Did your merciless self take over? Don't worry, before I die, I'll forgive you." "Stop talking, Derek," Zanina replied, her voice softening. "I'm sorry for your condition, and I'll do everything I can to make it right. I think it's time to call a doctor." She apologized, feeling it was her duty to mend the harm done to someone she was responsible for, despite the bitterness she harbored in those challenging moments. Derek, however, seemed to have a different perspective. "No doctors. Besides, I'm already feeling better.